In the 2 months that followed the announcing of an unmarked gravesite at Kamloops Residential School in British Columbia, at least 68 churches were burnt and vandalized across Canada. One of those churches was St. George Coptic Orthodox Church, located in Surrey, BC, where at least it was located there until it was engulfed in flames on July 19, 2021, and was beyond saving. I'm Drea Humphrey from Rebel News, standing in front of the Surrey Provincial Courthouse because behind me, a sentencing hearing for the woman who had pled guilty to burning that church down has begun. Was it an act of hate, pyromania, or something else? And how are the victims of that fire coping today? You'll find out what I do in this report as I find it out, but before I jump to it, you should know that unlike with this church community, many other church targeting suspected arsonists and vandals have yet to be caught, which means our Rebel News Chief Commander Ezra Levant's generous offer to pay $10,000 of his own money to any person whose tip leads us to the arrest of a criminal who burnt down one of those churches still stands. To do the right thing and let us know what you know. And to find out more about that reward, please open up another tab on your device and head to findthearsonist.com. At Rebel News, we work hard to bring you the other side of the story in all things. That includes having our boots on the ground to bring you in-depth reports about the spree of burnt and vandalized churches that swept across this country last summer. Churches like St. George Coptic Orthodox Church, which was first attempted to be burned down on July 14th, 2021, and then burnt to a crisp 5 days later by a woman named Kathleen Panic. While parts of the United States looked to Canada with shock and horror about the cluster of attacks on Christian places of worship, it seemed as though our own country barely blinked at them, and in some cases even justified such acts.
One of my reflections is I understand the anger that's out there against the federal government, against institutions like the Catholic Church. It is real and it is fully understandable given the shameful history that we're all becoming more and more aware of.
I suppose that shouldn't be all too surprising considering our country is run by a prime minister who treats truckers honking their horns till 8 p.m. while their children jump on bouncy castles and others dance in protest against the COVID-19 mandates that have taken away their livelihoods as terrorists, yet would rather pose for a selfie than publicly condemn a sudden spike in attacks on Christian places of worship as acts of hate and terror. You talked about Canada's last wrongs, the past things they haven't done right. When will you speak out about the 20 vandalized churches? They're burning churches and vandalizing them, and you're not calling it a hate crime. But Rebel News doesn't just bring you the other side of the story. We also follow the facts wherever they lead us. And although Panic has pled guilty to attempting to burn down St. George Coptic Orthodox Church and then succeeding on doing so July 19th, during the same time, we saw a spike in hateful acts against churches after the announcing of unmarked gravesites at residential schools. There was no evidence brought forward in court today to suggest that Panic destroyed this church for any reason related to residential schools in Canada. When I double-checked with Crown Prosecutor Michael Fortino to see if there was any correlation between the announcements of the unmarked gravesites and Panic's actions of arson, he stated this was not an offense that was motivated by hate. I spoke with the church board member Steve Faltis, who describes the church as a haven during one of the hearings breaks today to see if knowing this gave him or his church community any comfort.
Honestly, the community is slowly coming back together, but still the devastation and the impact of that fire continues till today. We're not able to provide the services that we were regularly providing to our members. We're praying in a community center, which we thank the city of Surrey for, but it's not the same as praying inside the church you've grown up in and loved, and with the beautiful icons surrounding us. And it's been difficult, and we've noticed a lot of members who aren't attending as regularly, or families that simply haven't come back since the day of the fire. So it's been difficult, but today I feel at least we're able to potentially close one chapter from this traumatic event and move on to the next chapter, which hopefully, God willing, will be the rebuilding chapter.
So who is Kathleen Pennick, and why did she burn down a 70-year-old church that served 500 and more families, most of whom are new immigrants and refugees, and many of whom fled persecution for their faith in other countries, including having their churches burned before seeking a better life in Canada? Pennick, who has a history of substance abuse, is known to be part of the homeless community in the Whalley, Surrey area. For that reason, an officer with experience working on the ground in such areas was able to ID Pennick with the CC footage provided to the RCMP by the church. This ultimately led to her arrest on August 26 of last year. Pennick says she started both fires at the church after getting into a fight with her boyfriend, and while she claims she didn't intend for the second fire to get so out of hand, she does admit to standing nearby to watch the church go down in flames without calling for assistance. This isn't Pennick's first rendezvous with crime. Pennick has previously been found guilty for theft under $5,000 and even has committed prior arson at least one other time. You see, RCMP investigators did not stop with the church once Pennick was identified. Instead, they decided to look at cold cases of arsons in the area and found a hit where Pennick fit the description of a woman who had set fire to 2 units in Whalley's Sunshine Co-op on March 15th of 2021. Lorraine Dubeck was one of the women who could have died in that fire, and here's what she had to say.
The fire truck's on July 19th, and my window was wide open. Remember, if you recall how warm it was, and all I could smell was smoke. And for 3 days, I think I might have gotten 2 hours sleep. It was pretty traumatic. And then it just so happened that one of my older sister had seen the video from the church and said that's the same video from our co-op.
Really?
And, I didn't recognize it. She said it was the same body language. Ironically, she was charged.
Pennick pled guilty to the fire at Sunshine Co-op as well, and thus has been charged with 1 count of arson and endangering life for the Sunshine Co-op, and 1 count of arson to property for the church. While such crimes are serious and can hold lengthy sentences, the Crown recommended a 4-year sentence, including the time Pennick has served being incarcerated while waiting for sentencing. At the date of this report, which is February 24th, Pennick has been in custody for 183 days. The judge heard the Crown's recommendations and touching impact statements from some of Pennick's victims and chose to take more time to deliberate before sentencing, and thus the new sentence hearing will be on April 8th. Here is more from the church board member Faltis about what stage the church is at now and how anyone interested in helping can do so.
Thankfully, we have been able to get some money from the insurance company, but obviously with the building being 70 years old, that the funds that were provided are never going to be enough to rebuild what we had. So right now the dilemma and the discussion internally is where to go. Can we sell the property or the land and move somewhere further out to be able to afford building what we had and actually build something bigger to accommodate the growing members of our congregation? But that's tough as well, because for the last nearly 30 years we've been at this property, so to move further east might be a little bit difficult for some of the congregation members that are living further west.
And where can people go if they want to know more about where you guys are going to be rebuilding and maybe help with that?
The main place where we keep all our information and links is our website, which is stgeorge.ca. So again, that's stgeorge.ca.
If you appreciate at Rebel News that we fought to bring you the other side of the story and will continue to do so when it comes to the churches being burnt or vandalized that we saw happen last summer. And we even combined with your help to help restore a church on First Nation land that needed some serious renovations. Please consider supporting our independent journalism by going to rebelnews.com/donate. I'm Drea Humphrey, and this is Rebel News. Don't forget, there are still a lot of church communities who are still suffering from acts of arson and vandalism that took place last year and still have no answers on who did it. If you have any information, you may be eligible to receive a $10,000 reward. Please go to findthearsonist.com for more information.